Welcome to the Here's What I Learned podcast, a show for coaches who want to build thriving, sustainable businesses without the hustle. I'm your host, Jackie Hayes. I'm an online business manager who helps coaches transition from one-on-one coaching to group coaching programs. I've worked with coaches as a VA and an OBM and have seen the challenges they face in running the business side of their coaching businesses. This podcast will help you overcome those challenges so you can spend more of your time doing what you love. So sit back, take some notes, and have some fun.
Because I was going to spend my time growing my business. I was hell-bent. I was not going to spend my time Googling shit. Like, that was just bottom line. The biggest waste of time in my mind was sitting on the couch Googling things for hours on end, where I could just invest to work with a mentor and learn what I needed to learn.
On today's episode, I talk with Kim Trathen, owner of Kim Trathen Coaching LLC and business coach for female entrepreneurs. Kim combines her marketing knowledge, humor, and mindset principles to help women scale, not hustle, to their goals. All right, Kim, thank you so much for being here with me today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Jackie. I'm super excited. So as you said, my name is Kim. I'm Kim Trathen, and I am a business coach for female entrepreneurs that want to scale, not hustle, to grow their business, hit their goals, scale to 100K and beyond. I am a mom to 3 amazing, crazy, wild ADHD boys, ages 9, 11, and 15. My husband and I bought our dream home a few years ago, so I work out of my dream office that used to be nothing more than what felt like a pipe dream. My background is that I was head of marketing in corporate. I had been with the same firm for about almost 20 years when I left to go full-time into entrepreneurship. So I am one of those working moms that scaled her business while holding down a corporate job.
Great. Well, I like to start everything off with some rapid fire questions so people can get to know you just a little bit better. Got 3 of them for you. The first one is, what one movie do you stop and watch whenever it is on TV? It doesn't matter how many times you have seen it.
Oh, my Mean Girls.
Oh, you're a girl after my own heart. I love that movie.
I mean, I'm not like a regular mom. I'm like a cool mom. So.
Okay, so of all of the characters, who would you be?
Oh gosh. I think I would be different girls at different points of my life from that movie. So it's kind of hard to narrow down just one of them. So instead, I'm going to give you my favorite character because there are parts of me that relate to each one of them. But by and large, my favorite character is Regina George. I can't help but love her Mean Girl character in it.
Yeah, she is great. That is
so good.
One of those best movies ever. I did not watch that movie until probably about 5 years ago, maybe.
Oh my gosh. Welcome to the party.
Where have I been all my life? Okay, so rapid fire question, I guess now 2. If you were to audition for The Voice, what would be your audition song?
Oh my gosh. So many good ones. I'm actually okay. Anything Beyonce, Rihanna, and Britney is right up my alley. I would probably have to go with Beyonce, Who Run the World, Girls.
That's a good one. And then the last one is, what is one thought that you're currently being challenged by, and how are you working to make that mindset shift?
Oh, I love that question. A thought that I'm challenged by that I am actively practicing a lot right now is that I am already a $1 million business owner. I'm challenged by it because it is not financially true yet. So I'm practicing it every day, normalizing it in my brain that this can be a thought that is in my future and it's becoming a reality. And so it serves as my guidepost right now for everything that I'm doing in my business. But I think practicing those thoughts before they may be factually true on paper, like financially true, is so important for us to go through. So that is probably the number one thought that I'm working on right now.
Okay. When it comes to thoughts like that, is that something you work with your clients on?
110,000% yes. It is. Our thoughts are so incredibly powerful, and it's so fascinating to learn like the science behind it, what's going on in the brain. I will fully admit that when I first launched my business, I knew nothing about the brain. I knew nothing about brain science. I thought mindset work just sounded like stuff people did when they didn't understand strategy. So then the more I started to learn, I used to say I'm one woo, not two. I wasn't woo woo, but I was like starting to see the benefits of this. And then I dove deep into the brain science and started learning about it and like what's actually happening in our brain, why we have the thoughts that we have, why certain thoughts are easier to think than other thoughts are, what physiologically happens inside the brain when we start learning new thoughts. And I was like, oh, this is like an actual scientific thing. Mindset work is so much more than just reading a few positive mantras, right? And practicing thoughts is like practicing a new mantra. But it can literally, you can hand somebody the most wonderful strategy on a silver platter. And if their mindset is holding them back, they can sabotage any great strategy with a horrible mindset. And just like you can have the greatest mindset, but if there's no strategy behind it, that can be a problem too. So I'm a big advocate that mindset plus strategy is what equals success. Like both of them are important to have.
Okay. Now, when you're working with your clients on that, you said you work with women who want to scale, but without all the hustle. Why did you start working with that area of coaching and those particular clients?
Yeah. So when I started my business, as I mentioned, I was in marketing. My background in school was in stats. I was a stats major and an econ minor, and then ended up working for an actuarial company. And I worked on retirement plans for about 13 years before I moved into marketing. So I took a very analytical approach when I knew I wanted to become an entrepreneur and I wasn't exactly sure what my business was going to look like. I sat down. I'm just going to nerd out for a minute and be honest. I made a Venn diagram. I had my passions on one side, my skills on the other. And then I was like, my top passion was supporting women. I had lost a friend previously in an act of domestic violence. She was murdered. And that was back in 2010. And so I had done a lot of work with our local domestic violence shelter. I had founded a nonprofit. I had done speaking events. So my number one passion coming out of that was supporting women. And my top skill that I had, I felt like my top marketable skills was my marketing, right? Like I was head of marketing. I knew how to do this. So when I launched my business, it just made so much sense for me to launch and serve female entrepreneurs. And when I first launched, I only focused on marketing. I didn't even call myself a business coach at first. I think the very first thing I called myself was a marketing coach, because I would teach and I loved working with women and I loved talking and connecting. And like, I knew that coaching was the avenue that I wanted to go down. So it has definitely like grown and evolved over the last few years since I've been in business. And now I focus heavily on mindset with my clients, but we also take a look at that strategy because sometimes earlier stage entrepreneurs, maybe they're afraid to show up online or they don't understand how to write for an online audience. Writing for social media is different than writing like an ebook or an article or, things like that. So we really hit both with my clients now.
Okay. And you said that you were actually working full-time in corporate while you were making that transition. You have 3 children. How did you manage that? Did you fall into the hustle yourself? And if so, did you get out? And what did that whole transition look like from one end to a very different end of business?
Yes. Oh, so good. I definitely had a hustle element to my business. And part of it felt like it was out of necessity because I didn't know any better. Like that's what you see everywhere. And when you are holding down, I was working 30 hours a week, so it was considered full-time. When you're working a job, like your hours are more limited. And what happened is I got really used to working all the time. So much so that I almost wore it like a badge of honor. I would literally think to myself, I do more by 7 a.m. than other people do all day. And it became this sense of pride for me that it was like, yes, I feel productive and I'm doing things. I wasn't armed with the knowledge of how powerful mindset work can be. Because again, I was one woo, not two. And in the beginning, I had no woos in me. I was not armed with that knowledge. So it was all this hustle. And what happened, you hear it all the time, right? Is like, I burned out. I had two different points where I think burnout happened early in my journey. One of them, I ended up hospitalized with massive near fatal internal bleeding. And I was hospitalized for 5 days, and it was a whole thing. And I think that was one level of burnout that happens when it was a really difficult year, and like our dog died, my dad died, we had $12,000 of home and car damage. My father-in-law was in ICU for 2 weeks that October, and he's a walking miracle that he lived. And then it was New Year's Eve that I ended up not feeling well and ended up being hot. So like there was a lot of stress that I carried that year. And then I was also working around the clock, and the second level of burnout happened for me then. It was actually the first year that I hit 100K in my business. I was still working 30 hours a week in corporate. Nothing felt right. Everything felt so hard. I was working a lot of hours, and something wasn't working for me inside of my business. And I couldn't figure out at the time what it was. And it culminated for me about halfway through that year. That July was one of my most emotionally difficult months that I had ever experienced. And the anxiety was at an all-time high, and depression was creeping in. And I couldn't figure out why in the moment, like during that month. And it wasn't until I really like took a step back and I was like, what is creating all of this anxiety for me? And I realized so much of it was this constant stress and anxiety that I felt about trying to hit 100K in my business. And well, I'll just stay up for 2 more hours, or I'll get up an hour earlier. And it was like this constant hustle is what was mentally driving me into the ground. So I had to learn the hard way. All that to say, I had to learn the hard way.
I think a lot of us have to learn the hard way, unfortunately. So that's why one of, like podcasts like these and social media accounts that are like, no, this is what happens if you do this. Do you really want to get there? So.
Yeah. And I think those things are so important, because I was at a level in my business when I had that burnout in that July where like the anxiety was at an all-time high, depression was getting higher. And because of the people I was surrounded with, and because of the level of business I was at, I was able to like take a step back and be like, wait, what's going on? Where I can 1000% understand why people who are maybe just starting out and they're hitting that burnout, that's when they give up on their businesses, right? Like it becomes too much and they don't see like, oh, maybe there's another way to do this. Just because this thing of how I've been running it isn't working right now doesn't mean I'm not meant to do this thing. But there may be a different way for me to approach it, or I can learn from somebody else. And that's always been my go-to. As soon as I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I had founded a nonprofit before, but it was kind of like, I wasn't trying to scale it to like $1 million thing. It was something that we were keeping kind of small. And like I had run fitness classes myself, but again, never having the vision of running a business like I was on the journey to do now. So the very first thing that I did was I invested in a coaching program. I knew my time is so precious and my time was limited enough, even just with kids, right? Like even if I hadn't had a corporate job, if I'd been a stay-at-home mom and you're juggling young children, it's the same as having a full-time job, right? Because your time is not just your own. So I knew the fastest way for me to learn how to grow a profitable business was to hire a mentor in some capacity, because I was going to spend my time growing my business. I was hell-bent. I was not going to spend my time Googling shit. Like that was just bottom line. The biggest waste of time in my mind was sitting on the couch Googling things for hours on end, where I could just invest to work with a mentor and learn what I needed to learn.
So what do your days look like now when you're working on your business and working in your business?
Oh, so good. So good. My days now, I see clients Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I only see them during the daytime hours. I do not do early mornings. I do not do evenings. I basically start client calls anywhere from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. Those are my work hours. Mondays and Fridays, I reserve for me. meaning those are the days that I might write content. Those are the days that I might evaluate my week or evaluate my month or communicate with my accountant or my attorney, upload maybe files to QuickBooks if I need to do that, right? Like the financials. It might be time that I plan out my trainings, that I create my trainings. But I want to have to get showered on those days, right? Like this was what I'm going for, because on client calls, we're on video and I'm getting ready. So I love bookending my week with this spaciousness in my calendar where if I need to make appointments for the kids, I always know those 2 days are open, that I can book appointments without having to move client calls. I know that I don't have to be camera ready unless I want to be. I know that I have that complete space to write content and create, because that's the number one asset for every business owner out there is what messaging are you putting out into the world that brings your clients in, that brings opportunities to you, because that work keeps working for your business even when you're right, like asleep or out with the family or out to dinner with friends. That content keeps working for you out there. So it's really important. I think it's really important to carve out that time and space in the calendar to actually do that creating.
One of the things that you create is a weekly training video series. Where did you get the idea for that? And what does the production of that look like?
Oh, so fun. Yes. So I currently offer, currently it's held inside my Facebook group, the Female Ambitious Entrepreneurs, why am I mixing up my own name? The Ambitious Female Entrepreneur Society. I've only run this group for years now. Okay. Society. We don't know. Things happen. And I run a weekly free live business coaching where I teach on a topic. So I started doing this maybe 3-ish months ago. I started that series. So I have always done some type of live stream in my Facebook group. But I decided I wanted to make this almost more like a podcast production where I am recording. I have my topics planned out. I have the topics planned out for the entire year. That's something that I love doing, is batch creating. It saves so much time. I'm not spending time every week deciding what I'm going to talk about the next week. I just sat down sometime around the new year and I just brain dumped 52 ideas, and those are my live streams for this entire year. But I'm treating it a little bit more like a podcast because eventually I will be launching it as a podcast. Okay. So I do the live stream inside my group, and then I download it and it goes out on YouTube, because then it connects right to my website, right? I can see it right on there. And then people that aren't on Facebook can also watch it afterwards. So it's not just limited to the women that are in my Facebook group, but anybody out on the internet, right, could find my website, could find my YouTube channel, and they can watch that series. So the production of it, like I said, I batch create, and I type up my notes ahead of time. And then typically what I do is I create an event inside the Facebook group, and I really just use that as a way so that my Facebook group members know what we're going to be talking about that week. They don't have to join live. They can catch it on replay, but that way they all know what the topic is. And then when I go live, this isn't how everybody does it. I just speak from the heart. I've already typed up my notes of what I want to say, but I just use that as more like an outline so that I know what I'm going to say. I don't memorize it. I don't say it verbatim. But then what I do when I put the videos out on my website is I treat my notes that I wrote ahead of time as though they were like show notes from a podcast. And I put those out for people. And I have something at the top that says like, hey, this is not verbatim show notes, but like, here's everything that I planned to talk about. And I just share those kind of raw, vulnerable outline notes with my audience, because I think some people can find that really helpful too, to be able to read that. So I do my lives on Wednesdays. And then on Thursdays or Fridays, the email goes out to my list and I send my list the replay when it's out on my website and on YouTube. And then I promote that replay on social media on Fridays. Does that make sense? Did I cover it all?
Yeah. What kind of tools do you use for recording, and do you edit, anything along those lines?
Good question. Currently, I do not edit. I literally go live and I use the video as it is and I put it out places. So my tools are pretty simple right now because I'm running it as a Facebook Live. So the only tools that I really use would be, like Canva I use to create all my social media graphics. So I use that. I also started creating for free business coaching. I have a template for what the social media posts look like with a different image on for each one, just like how you would have a standard, right, with a podcast. So I use Canva to create that. I schedule things out in Hootsuite, especially for Instagram. I schedule it out in Hootsuite. And my Facebook group, sometimes I just pre-schedule it right inside the group. But those would be the only real tools that I have to use for it right now, since it's just done as a Facebook Live.
I love that. And I think a lot of people think you need all the tools and you need this expensive equipment, etc., to do all of those things. And when you start, just start with what you've got. So
just start, please, ladies, just start. The tools and technology can hold so many people back. And I even have one client right now that we were just coaching on this the other week, where she's really scared to just do a live stream, right? And I forget sometimes, because it's been so long, that I start to forget that some people haven't been doing live streams even still. So the number one thing that I love to tell women, if anybody is listening to this now or in the future that is nervous to go live, I love to remind people that, number one, as soon as you push the live button, you're not actually live yet, right? You can see the screen before you push the final start. Because I've had so many women that are like, I'm just scared to push the button, because then it's you got a minute. There's a couple buttons that you push. The other thing that I love to remind women is to make sure you just know where your camera hole is. Right? So look at your camera hole when you're going live. Don't look at yourself on the screen, because then it looks really weird. So just look at your camera hole, and you got a hot second before you actually go live, so you can check it after you push that. And the last thing too, I never watch my live streams back. I'm a proponent of, if you've gone live, you did a great job, and leave it. But if something literally terrible happened, where you wouldn't want it out there, I don't know, your young child runs through the room naked, and you don't want people seeing your naked child, right? Something happens that is truly you don't want it out there. When you're done going live, it will ask you, do you want to post it or not? And you can just delete it. So if something wild happened, there's always a fix. But I do not recommend listening to yourself back on camera, because it's horrifying for everybody.
I know I'm going to have to go back and edit these podcasts. I'm that's the worst part, is having to listen
to
yourself.
We all feel the same way. I actually read, and I can't remember the source right now to cite it, but I read somewhere that the reason it sounds so funny to us is because when we're just speaking, right, the voice is inside, but when we play it back, it's going through the ear. And so it sounds completely different, because it's not just inside of our own head, it's coming as an outside. And I was like, that makes so much sense.
It does. It makes so much sense. The vibrations are happening in a different way. It's just like when you look at yourself in pictures versus in the mirror, the whole mirror image thing. And you're and you never look the same as what you think you look like. Yes, exactly.
It's so bizarre.
Yes. So I have a question about, what has been your biggest win in your business, and how did you celebrate it?
Oh man, the celebration. Historically, I've been horrible at celebrating. Okay, so
I think we all have been bad.
Yes, it's so easy to celebrate other people. I remember at one point saying to my husband, I just realized I've signed my first client. I got my first article published in an online magazine. I had gotten my first paid speaking events. I had done all these firsts. And I was we haven't even celebrated. We would do a short high five, but we didn't go to dinner. We didn't. So I will definitely say that that is something that I had a lot of room for growth, and that I do a much better job at it now, but it's still, I have to work on that. I would say my biggest win was being able to leave my corporate job, scaling my business. I scaled to the 6-figure mark before I actually left my job. So I juggled both, and I knew then that it was time to put in my notice. And actually, more than replacing my corporate income, I would say has been my biggest of all wins. And we celebrated that kind of a couple different ways. I was going to a mastermind that I had joined, and I bought myself a first class ticket, and I got a hotel room. So even just doing that instead of just choosing to do something virtual was a really big celebration. And with my family, I think we did a family dinner for that one and like did takeout, and we all like cheered with the boys, and it was fun. It was super fun.
So then what has been your biggest challenge and how have you overcome that?
My biggest challenge, I would sum it up like I was my own stopping point. I would even say my own mindset. Again, in the beginning, I knew nothing about mindset work and thought that it was just for people that didn't know strategy. It sounds so foolish now, so foolish. But that was literally where I was when I was starting my business. And how I overcame it was, I think what happened is there was a tipping point in my business. Like I would invest in mentors that were teaching different strategies. I wanted to learn like Facebook ads at one point in time. And I was just doing all these different strategy things. And I was working a lot of hours. And it was suddenly like this realization of, God, my business doesn't feel like I thought it would. And things still feel harder than I think they should at this point. And so then I started looking at investing with a mentor that talked a lot about mindset and strategy. And that felt like a certain level of safety to me because there was still that strategy piece there. And I like respected the strategy piece, and the mindset piece felt like almost scary because it was unknown. So I invested in a mentor that was heavy on both. And it became very clear so fast that nothing in my strategy was the problem. And it was 100% my mindset, as so many people find. Right. And so I think part of overcoming that was really just me having that understanding and being open to learning about the mindset work, learning why it's important, what actually happens in our brains, and really understanding. So it kind of pulls together like quantum physics, law of attraction, life coach principles. Like when you pull all of those together, it all is summed up into this core, like they're all connected. They're all saying the same thing in different ways. And it's like basically whatever we believe to be true about ourselves makes us feel certain ways. And then out of that, we take action. So for example, a lot of, and I had this earlier in my journey too, a lot of women, when they come to me, they're like, I'm just stuck. I'm stuck. I don't know how to get beyond where I'm at right now. Well, when we spend all of our days thinking that we're stuck and feeling that emotion of like frustration, even stuck, I think is an emotion that we feel like we don't know where to go from there. And when we feel stuck and we're telling ourselves that we're stuck, we do certain things. We might obsess over the thing that we think isn't working. We might wake up at night. We're not sleeping well. Maybe we're working more and not exercising. We're not eating the good foods. We literally feel like we have no other options, right? Being stuck is like, I don't know what to do. That's sometimes when women quit on their businesses, right? They felt so stuck, they just stopped. They gave up. Versus if we can see and learn like, oh, right now I'm thinking that I'm stuck. What would I do if I wasn't telling myself I was stuck? What would I do if instead I told myself like, I always figure things out? There's always another thing I can do. There's always another way to look at it. That's one that I love. There's always another way to look at it. Or even if I'm feeling stuck, reminding myself like, how could the opposite be true? How am I not stuck right now? And when you think like, how am I not stuck? Or telling yourself like, I'm really good at figuring things out. That's something I truly believe to my core about myself. I always felt like I was good at figuring things out. I no longer feel stuck when I remind myself how good I am at figuring things out, and I feel resourceful. And when you feel resourceful, now is when you get creative, right? So instead of spending your time obsessing about the thing that is not working, not exercising, working around the clock, right? All those behaviors that so many of us do if we feel stuck, when you feel resourceful, then you start thinking outside the box, right? Maybe you realize like, oh, actually, when I go for a run, I can release that anxiety. I feel a lot better. And then I can tap into the creativity. Right. So it's such an important thing for everybody. And it's exactly how the law of attraction works. Like I thought people were crazy when I first heard about like mindset work and law of attraction. I'm like, I know Oprah talks about it, but still it can't be real, right? We can't just like wish for something to happen. Well, it's not just the wishing for it, it's what we're doing in our whole lives. And when we energetically feel better, people take notice, right? Opportunities open up, people reach out, clients start coming in. You start seeing bigger results, you start sleeping better, you feel better about yourself. But it all starts with what you believe to be true. And then it's like that domino effect of what actions you take from there.
Now, a lot of people believe that it is true that in your first couple of years in business, you have to hustle to be successful. You have to. That's just part of your first years in business. And they'll rest and they'll take it easier and they'll bring on a team or whatever it happens to be. Once they have so many clients or once they hit the 100K mark or whatever their limit is. Is it just a thought that they're having? Is it, reality? Or is there a way to still be successful, not, and not take forever and ever without that hustle and grind that so many of us think needs to be there?
Yes. Oh my God. Such a good question. So as I said earlier, I didn't know any different when I started my business, right? So I didn't know any different. So there was a lot of hustle that was happening. I can completely say with full confidence, it was unnecessary. So what I mean by that is, do you need to actually work in your business? Yes. Right? Like you can't just sit on the couch and watch Mean Girls all day listening to Beyonce and think that that is going to be sufficient to create a business out of thin air. Like that's not how it works. You do have to have time, but having time to work in your business is not the same as hustling all the time, right? I literally fell asleep at the desk when I was building my business because I would get up before the kids did and I would stay up after they went to bed. And I had gotten up at like 4 a.m. that day to work before the kids and before going into work. And then I stayed up until like midnight that night working. That is unnecessary. That was doing nothing to help me grow faster because when you're so mentally tired, right? But so for example, like one of my clients, Carrie, who is so amazing, she decided to take on a 9-to-5 job and she was really worried about her timing then. Would she still have time to spend with her husband and time to eat lunch with him and all of those things? So we coached hard around the mindset of it, right? Because if you're thinking there's no time to do this, I'm not going to have time, usually creates some feeling of stress in the body. And when we're stressed, we're not functioning at our prime. Our brains aren't as clear. We're not as efficient with how we're spending our time. So we worked a lot with her on her confidence in herself and on how there's always enough time to get the most important things done, right? It doesn't mean that we get everything done on Monday, but it might be that we do this Monday morning and we do this Monday afternoon or this on our lunch break, right? We plug things into the day where they work. And it is wildly different to have that faith and trust in yourself and in what you're choosing to spend your time on. That's what can really counterbalance this, I just have to work around the clock feeling, right? Like I have to work every day, I have to work all the time. The truth is, if you're working full-time hours with a part-time client load or no clients in the beginning, those hours are definitely not necessary, right? Otherwise, nobody would be able to grow a business once they had clients because there wouldn't be enough hours in the day to get everything done. So really being able to take control of your schedule, take control of your time, and understand what's going on in your brain that is either holding you back and causing you to hustle. The other thing that I found with a lot of clients, not always, I work with creatives too, but I do tend to attract a lot of type A personalities or people that identify as a type A personality. I think because like attracts like, right? So this happens. Typically what I find is the overworking and the hustling is filling some other void that's going on. It's not really about those hours being required. And when we start to alleviate those hours, this is you if you actually get all your work done and then you just find more things to do to fill your time.
I don't identify at all.
You're like, this is obscene. What?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You're not the only one. Yes, it's a telltale sign that the hustle is trying to fill some other need and it's not required to actually grow the business. So then it's like peeling back those layers, right? Okay, what need is this filling? Is it because it makes me feel productive? Is it because it makes me feel like this will make me successful? Is it because it's really uncomfortable to actually sit in stillness and not have every minute of my day occupied? And if that's the case, like, why? It's just like this constant exploration and just like gently prodding ourselves a little bit deeper, which is why this work is so powerful. When we look at we actually get to know ourselves on such a deeper level when we start investigating, like, why do I want to do this? Like, why do I want to work more? Why am I waking up in a panic at 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. or 6 a.m.? Right? We just really get to understand how we're wired and what's driving us, because we don't just want to, it's almost like there's something deeper going on and the symptom is the overworking, right? So we want to actually figure out what that deeper thing is, because that's where real change happens.
What's one thing that you would say to your younger self or to somebody who's just starting in the coaching business in regards to the running of a coaching business? What's one piece of advice that you would give them?
Don't make it harder than it is. I truly believe that whether it's coaching or some other business, I truly believe running a business is the hardest, easy thing you'll ever do. But we make it the hardest on ourselves. So for running the actual business, especially somebody just starting out, my number one tip would be, like I said, I invested right away in a program. I was not going to waste my time Googling, right? There's a reason why so many businesses fail. And a lot of people have an unrealistic expectation that because it's low barriers of entry into the online space, meaning it's not the same as getting funding for a brick and mortar. You don't have that type of overhead going out every month. So they make the mistake of thinking that because it's a low cost to enter the space, that it's going to be easy to grow. And that is not necessarily true. I think it was in a Forbes article that I read that 90% of online businesses fail. 90%.
That's a lot of businesses.
It's a lot of businesses. And that I think includes all online businesses, right? So you have some people that just like, I'm going to do this. And then they never do it, right? Like they just never do it. At least I assumed that it included everybody under the sun that said they were starting an online business. I've also read that in the coaching space, only 3% of coaches hit $100,000 in their business. Mm-hmm. So those stats are there for a reason. So that's why I say, like, this is the hardest, easy thing you'll ever do. So many people are busy getting in their own ways that it makes it so much harder for them to scale, right? You don't need, like you mentioned earlier, you don't need all the bells and whistles. You don't need the most expensive website. You don't need all the, expensive microphones and everything like that. I started my business with a $200 Chromebook and a pair of free corded earbuds. I have AirPods now. The old school earbuds that came with my phone. That's what I started my business with. And that's what I scaled to my first 100K with. Right. So don't overcomplicate it and don't make it harder than you need to. But the best thing that I did for myself was investing with somebody right away. Right. And as a coach, I feel the same way. Coaching is the most powerful investment that you can make in your business, for your business and for yourself. So for sure, get the help and support that you need so that you're not wasting all of your time Googling things and crying at night. I heard this from so many women. No, it's unnecessary.
Now with your coaching, it's not an extra thing, right? It's an integral part of your business. It's part of your business day. It's not some addition. Like, is that how you would treat the coaching that you receive and the masterminds that you're in?
Yes. Oh, great question. It is 100% a priority. So there's different types of coaching. I coach in groups, either I'm part of groups or I'm coaching inside of the group about 2 to 4 hours a week. Right? Because we can do peer coaching in that one. So I coach my peers for a couple of hours, and then I have 2 other hours in the week that are like working with my mentor in that group. So it's 4 hours a week, just spending that time with the other people in that group and getting coaching for myself. I also do self-coaching every single day. And I have my clients do the same thing. When we learn to treat our brain like the number one asset that it is, it's amazing what we can accomplish. And we do that. I always equate it to like exercise. Everybody knows somebody that is constantly on a diet, right? And they're always trying to lose the weight, or they're always going to start a new exercise program. And then whether we've been there ourselves or we know somebody who's like, I'm going to exercise and I'm only going to eat bananas and lettuce and I'm not going to have anything else and I'm going to run 6 miles tomorrow, right? And then they're sore and they can't walk and then they eat nothing but cookies at like midnight. Like, it doesn't do any good when right? Versus if you just took 20 minutes a day and did some movement in your day, that's going to add up to be so much more powerful for your health in the long term than running once a month for 6 miles and killing yourself and then falling off the wagon. It is exactly the same with the mindset work. When we take care of our brains every single day, it has such a tremendous effect on us in the long run, versus what so many people want to do is they do the mindset work and they're like, I'm good. I feel great. I'm not worried about things anymore. I'm sleeping awesome. And so then they stop doing the mindset work and then they don't feel great. And suddenly the anxiety is raging and the overwhelm is back and the doubts are back and they don't understand what happened. And it's because they stopped taking care of their brains. So spending that time, it is very important time that I spend inside of my business. I would say anywhere from 5 to 7 days a week. I sit down and I journal, because to me, it's about more than just growing my business. It's growing my brain. It's taking care of myself. It helps to manage like my anxiety and those fears that creep up, because we all have them. And I think one of the number one lies that almost every woman tells herself is, once I hit insert level, once I hit 100K, everything will be easier. Once I hit 200K, I won't worry anymore. Once I hit, right? Or once I sign my first client, or once I'm fully booked, or we have these like artificial benchmarks in our brains that we think are going to make us feel better. But the truth is, it doesn't. Whatever is happening inside your business and your brain right now. So if you're hustling, you're going to be driven to hustle even more if you don't get that under control now. If your brain is spinning out on you, it's going to get even worse, because what tends to happen is the more money you make in your business, it's almost like we mentally start growing this pedestal that we're standing on. And now we think the fall is even greater if it collapses under us. Where in the beginning, there's not much to lose. So once you grow a 6-figure business, now it's like, oh my God, if I fail, everybody's going to know, right? And those fears start to get bigger and bigger inside of our brains. So making sure to spend that time getting coached. If you are a coach, coaching people, getting coached yourself, and self-coaching, right? Like working with a mentor is different than when I do my journaling and my brain dump and see what's going on in there. And it's like the most important investment into myself, time that I spend self-coaching, and the financial investment that I spend to work with a mentor, which is 100% why I attribute being able to scale a 6-figure business while I was still in corporate and had the kids that were in sports and all the things.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. Can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yes, I would love to. KimTheBusinessCoach.com is my website. So KimTheBusinessCoach.com. They can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok using @KimTheBusinessCoach. It's my handle on all 3 platforms. You can also find me on LinkedIn. It's not my favorite of places to hang out, but you will find me popping up there periodically. Facebook and Instagram are my number ones. And as I mentioned earlier, I have my Facebook group, the Ambitious Female Entrepreneurs Society, and that is where the free live business coaching happens every Wednesday at noon.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time today, Kim.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.
It was. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Here's What I Learned podcast. Please be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Bye for now.